Hey, welcome back. You have Miss Adair, and I'm going to read Chapter 15 for Stargirl. We left off with Stargirl sneaking a Valentine's card into Leo's notebook that he didn't notice for a few days, and the basketball game that didn't end up going well for Micah High School, and ended up with Stargirl getting a tomato in her face. So kind of rough, but here we go. Chapter 15. She gave everybody in school a card. That was my first thought. When I saw Kevin at school, I was about to ask him, but I pulled back. I waited until lunch, and I tried to be casual. I slipped it in with the only thing that mattered that day. The school was in mourning. The game, the loss, the tomato. Oh yeah, incidentally, speaking of Stargirl, did you happen to get a card? He looked at me funny. She gave them to her homeroom, I heard. Yeah, I said. That's what I heard too. But was that all? Did she give them to anybody else? He shrugged. No, not to me. Why, you get one? No. He was looking away across the lunchroom, biting into his sandwich, yet I felt he was grilling me. I shook my head. Oh, no, just wondering. Actually, I was sitting on the card. It was in the back pocket of my jeans. Meanwhile, all eyes in the lunchroom were on Stargirl. I think we half expected to see traces of red still clinging to her face. She sat at the usual table with Dory Dilson and several other friends. She seemed subdued. She did not play her ukulele. She did not play with her rat. She just ate and talked with the girls at the table. As the lunch period was ending, she got up, but did not head straight for the exit. Instead, she detoured in the direction of my table. I panicked. I jumped up, I grabbed my stuff and blurted, "Gotta go," and left Kevin with his mouth hanging and took off. Not fast enough. Halfway to the door, I heard her behind me. Hi, Leo. My face got warm. I was sure every eye had turned to me. I was sure that they could all see the card in my pocket. I pretended to look at the clock. I pretended I was late for something. I ran from the lunchroom. I lurked in the shadows for the rest of the day. I went straight home after school. I stayed in my room, and I came out only for dinner. I told my parents I had a project to do. I paced. I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling. I stared at the window. I laid the card on my study desk. I picked it up. I read it. I read it. I read it. I played "Hi, Leo" over and over in my head. I tossed darts at the corkboard in the back of the room. My father called in, "What's your project, darts?" I went out. I drove around in the pickup. I drove down her street. And at last intersection before her house, I turned off. For hours, I lay under my sheet of moonlight. Her voice came through the night, from the light, from the stars. Hi, Leo. In the morning, it was Saturday, Kevin and I went together to Archie's for the weekly meeting of the Loyal Order of the Stone Bone. There were about 15 of us. We wore our fossil necklaces. Archie wanted to discuss the Eocene skull he was holding, but all the others could talk about was the game. When they told Archie about the tomato, his eyebrows went up, but other than that, his face did not change. I thought, this is not news to him. He already knows. Archie spent the whole session that way, nodding and smiling and raising his eyebrows. We dumped our disappointment on him, the devastation of the loss. He said very little, and when it was over, he looked down at the skull on his lap and patted it and said, "Well, this little fellow here lost his game too. He was winning for 10 million years or so, but then the early grasses started growing up around him, and he found himself on in a different league. He hung in there as well as he could. He scored his points, but he kept falling farther and farther behind. The opposition was better and quicker, keener. In the championship game, our boy got annihilated. Not only he didn't show up for class the next day, but he never showed up, period. I never saw him again." Archie lifted the snouted, fox-sized skull until it was side by side with his own face. A good minute passed as he said nothing, inviting us into our own thoughts. Faces staring at faces, staring at faces. tens of millions of years of faces in a living room in a place called Arizona. So chapter 15 ends there with just Leo kind of realizing he may have some feelings for Stargirl. We'll see you next time.